BC Game will play IEM Atlanta and CS Asia Championship with Simple, Electronic, Crazy, Senzu, Skrunk, and Coach Taz. What the fuck am I looking at? I so deeply want Senzu to just go back to Mongols, and I so deeply just want BC Game to field a serious team, because what the fuck are these teams that I'm looking at, man?
Guys, I think we might be at the point where Bertram Clyde is finally fielding a serious roster. And not only is it a serious roster, I think it's fair to say that it might be the most interesting roster in all of Counter-Strike at the moment, at least in my opinion. I can't think of another roster that has as much intrigue as this Bertram Clyde roster has. When we left off, Bertram Clyde were left with two players on the team, Simple and Electronic. And while this duo is single-handedly enough to be interesting, in themselves, people are gonna watch Simple till he's 100 years old. The streets will forever move for Simple. It doesn't matter what team he's on. That team is always going to get viewership and have fans. I guess they had Taz as the coach as well, which is like somewhat interesting. But since that point, after I was begging Senzu to go back to the Mongols main lineup, the complete opposite happened. He actually stayed in Bertram Clyde. And not only that, he pulled one of his teammates over in Mizinio. And then they also went on to sign Magisk as the team's IGL, which is a move that you could have maybe seen coming if you were paying attention to the CEO's Twitter account, where at one point when it was leaked that Mouse maybe were targeting Magisk as their IGL, he seemingly had a lot of information on Magisk and knew for a fact that he would not be going to Mouse. And it really makes you think, how would he know that Magisk is for sure not going to Mouse unless Magisk was going to his team instead? And so now Bertram Clyde Gaming is fielding a starting lineup of Simple on the op, Electronic, Magisk as the IGL, Senzu, and Mizinio. We have taken one of the deadliest duos in Counter-Strike history in Simple and Electronic, taken one of the newer duos from Mongols in Senzu and Mizinio, and taken one of the most decorated riflers in Counter-Strike history who played with Prime Astralis and also won a major on Vitality, and made him the team scholar. This team on paper is absolutely demonic. If you just saw the names, you would think this team could absolutely be like a top 5 team in the world. But that leads me to the main question that I'm going to be asking today. What realistically is the ceiling of this BC Game lineup? What is their floor? And will this new rebuild from Bertram Clyde Gaming actually work? Follically challenged Garmour speaking. Guys, if you would like to support me in the stuff I do here, check out the new long-term sponsor of the Garmour YouTube channel, SkinSwap. SkinSwap is the #1 place to trade your Rust or Counter-Strike skins for new ones where you can instantly upgrade your inventory. And if you use my code Garmour, you can get up to $50 on a free skin and a 3% lifetime selling bonus. And now you can also easily buy skins off the Chinese marketplace for cheaper prices than you ever could on the Western marketplaces. I truly think this is the best feature on any skin trading website, but if you are looking to sell, you can sell your skins for crypto, PayPal, Venmo, and a bunch of other withdrawal methods. Along with this, SkinSwap has a vault system now, which makes it the most rewarding skin trading website. And of course, don't forget the giveaways. And I think that's it. Thank you to them, thank you to you guys, and back to the video. Now, up to this point, Bertram Clyde Gaming has played really two real teams, two teams that were ranked in the top 40 in VRS rankings, and that was 100 Thieves and 1 win. And before we get into more of the narrative-based stuff, I do want to give you guys a little bit more context on how this team is playing, kind of their roles, look at the demo with the 100 Thieves a little bit. Oh my. First, I want to show you guys this, and I promise this is not a sponsored segment. I just genuinely use this site all of the time because instead of going into every single game and seeing what players are doing, this is a really easy way to kind of see players' roles just on a website. It's on Skybox GG. Some people in the streams have been asking. Like I said, I promise this is not sponsored. I just think it's a genuinely good product. And so if we start looking at the players, we obviously know Simple is going to be opping. Then we get to Electronic, where Electronic is playing a lot of lurk roles on the T side, and then still a lot of incredibly important roles on the CT side. Connector on Mirage, mid on Cash, mid on Dust, Yard on Nuke, which when you see him playing in roles like this, and then you see this, it maybe is a little bit concerning, but we'll get a little bit more to that later. So we have Electronic as the team's main closer, Senzu is the team's main opener, Mizinio is of course the team's main anchor, and then we have Magisk just kind of doing whatever the fuck he needs to, playing a lot of anchor positions like most IGLs do. And so then when we get into the demo, there are a couple things I mainly am paying attention to, and it's just kind of how comfortable all of these players are on CT, which you would think is fairly comfortable. You know, Bertram Clyde, when they made this roster, they paid attention to the player roles, because I do think everyone fits together on this team very well. And so pistol round, we just got a ramp rush called from 100 Thieves here. Mizinho gives it up. Magus gets a fadeaway one-tap on device. Bye-bye, pal. It gets another on Sierra. Magus might be the greatest player of all time, is what all this demo's showing. And he almost gets a third as well after a 180. And so anyways, you know, Bertram Clyde, they win the pistol round, thanks in part a lot due to Magisk. Which, if Magisk can be individually great while calling, that will give this team a huge boost. Because we still don't know how good of a caller Magisk is going to be. But the main player I want to pay attention to on this CT side is unfortunately going to be Electronic. Because I think at this point, he is without a doubt the weakest link in the entire team. And he plays so many important positions, especially on the CT side. I just think if Bertram Clyde really wants to be a serious team, he is probably going to have to get replaced at some point. But I'll show you why. So this is a force buy from 100 Thieves. They throw outside smokes. Gizmy gets to red box. And then Electronic decides to take more outside space, is not ready for the guy next to Hut, and gets mowed. And so, you know, this is a pretty agonizing kill to give away. Giving a pick up to a Tech 9. I don't want to go too hard because, like, it's one round. But he just seems completely unaware that Gizmy can even be here. And, like, if you swing from garage here, like, 9 times out of 10, you flatten him and he has no chance. But he just fully catches Electronic off guard. And so, Bertram Clyde do eventually recover this round. Gizmy just can't really stop the defuse here, but it gets a little scarier than you would want it to. And so then on round 5 of this game, the first round that BC game is going to lose is actually because 100 Thieves and Gizmy decides to kind of try and abuse Electronic, or at least abuse the fact that he's playing so passive outside. And so the game plan here is just to put a ton of pressure through Squeaky, you know, kind of distract Magisk. And while Magisk is distracted, Gizmy comes red box and Sierra is directly above him, and Electronic really just stands no chance here. He kind of freaks out a little bit, and then Magisk is also dead. And now it is a 3v3. 100 Thieves have gone down vent and now have B site. They kill Mizinho, and now it's just a 3v2 post plant, and they kind of just win this round. And so the adjustment BC game makes next round, we're simply going to put Simple where he just got molested. And pray that he holds it down instead. Because, you know, the weak link on this team, like I said earlier, at this point really does seem to be Electronic. So we'll just have, you know, Simple pick up the slack. And pick up the slack he does. Device is expecting a free pick on a Chuddington Electronic. And instead he peeks into Simple. And then Simple gets a second one. And almost gets a third one. And then he does get a third one. So, you know, a pretty good adjustment, I would say, from BC game here. 100 Thieves kind of know they can abuse outside and abuse Electronic, so they just throw Simple out there instead. Surprise. And so then on the next round, 100 Thieves decides they're going to do a very similar play to what they just did and take outside with 3 players, throw a wall of smokes, and walk to Secret. Electronic, playing outside very passively, decides to let them down Secret. And for the most part, this is a good round for 100 Thieves. They get Secret control. They still have 2 players who are looking to come ramp late. And while this seems like a well-called B crunch so far, you know, there is only Mizinho down on site. If they can kill him, it should be easy. Well, we do still have Simple over here on ramp. And 100 Thieves is kind of just going to run into the same problem they did last round, which is just Simple. After Mizinho gets one and gets traded, he gets the trade on Gizmy. He gets a kill on device on site, gets another one ramp, and stays alive. And so while it was a pretty good round from 100 Thieves, the B crunch was good. Mizinho only got 1. Simple just gets 3 from ramp and is just single-handedly shutting down 100 Thieves at this point. You know, if you look at the scoreboard, he is 15-4, and then this is the rest of the team stats. And so with Simple on the roster, and you know, with him just being able to single-handedly take over and win them rounds, you know, they're always going to be a dangerous team. But this is where the problems start to come in. On this half-buy round, they once again do the same walk into Secret, and this time, as you will see, Simple only gets 1 kill. He gets a kill on Poi, tries to get another, he hits him, and then is traded by Device. And at this point, it is a 3v1. 100 Thieves have the entire bomb site. And realistically, if Simple didn't go superhero mode in the round before this is probably what the last round was going to be as well. You know, the only real difference between this round and the last round was that Simple only got 1 instead of 3. And well, 100 Thieves kind of knew this. They knew they could do the same exact thing. They got down Secret very easily. They just needed to trade Simple, and this time they did. And so after needing to save after that round they just lost, it is now 6-3 after they started up 6-1, still completely fine. And well, once again, to try and counter this outside push, you know, that lost them their previous round, their answer is once again, throw Simple at him, which, you know, more often than not is a pretty solid solution. And so while playing aggro outside, and Electronic kind of spamming through smokes, kind of baiting, like, you know, trying to act like Simple isn't pushed up, Simple does get 1 and then is immediately traded. God, I am so bad at this. See, like, especially right here, Electronic spamming these smokes is a very good thing. He's been doing this the entire half so far. He is acting like it is still only him playing outside, and it seems like he actually does a pretty good job of tricking the T's into not knowing that Simple could possibly be pushed up here. The main issue here is just this. Like, he hits Zero for a bunch, but then he jumps and dies to Device. You know, we can see it right there. If he wouldn't have jumped, I know he was getting tagged, so he was tweaking. If he doesn't jump, Device probably doesn't get to pick on him there. And then, you know, after Electronic dies, Simple is just fully left out on an island. There's, like, no way he can possibly get more than 1 here. And then Gizmi also kills Senzu. And at this point, this entire round is kind of chopped. They try to make an aggro outside play, but the entire thing kind of falls apart after Electronic gets picked off there. You know, Senzu probably could have played this a little bit more passive, but he probably really wanted to trade Simple here. He was desperate for the trade, man. Look at him. I mean, realistically, he probably should just go back down Secret, but he feels pressure to make that play because of Electronic initially dying. And so the round after that, BC game once again has to save. And now after a dominant start to this half, a 6-1 start to this game, it is now 6-5. You know, with the best possible result of this half now being a 7-5, which doesn't feel great after you had such a dominant start. And on this last round here, 100 Thieves tries to switch it up. You know, instead of abusing Electronic outside, they try and do an aggro A-pop to close out the half, which looks like it's gonna pretty easily get shut down here until it becomes a 3v3. To Electronic's credit, he does kill this outside lurker and also does spray down another through a smoke. You know, easily Electronic's best round of the entire game so far. And then Mazinio closes it out to give them a 7-5 half. And so I guess the good news at this point, you know, Senzu got a kill when they tried to pop out A. Electronic got 2 on the outside lurk and another player on A. And then Mazinio gets 2 kills of his own. And so while BC game won this round without Simple getting a single kill, it seemed, at least on their CT side, that the team had a lot of holes, especially outside with Electronic, and that their solution to a lot of those problems was Simple. And when Simple started not playing as well as he did at the start of that half, their CT side kind of started to fall apart. And while it still was a good half, you know, 7-5 isn't horrible, it feels like it could have been so much better, or honestly, so much worse. Like, if Simple doesn't have those heroic moments, this could without a doubt be a blowout. And so then when we get over to the T side, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, on here, I pretty much only care about what the calls are from Magisk, right? I want to see what is Magisk saying to these fellas on these T rounds. And it's an A-pop, a classic. I do this in Face It all the time with the fellas. It's chaotic as fuck. We're in a 2v2. But I do think they close this out. There's no way they're losing a Poi on 18 HP. Hello? Yeah, they do close out. So it's like, you know, rush A, pistol rounds, it's a whatever call. And to be honest with you guys, I'm also like extremely intrigued to see how Senzu is on this T side. So far this game, you know, he's 7-8, he's playing fine. It seems like on a lot of the CT rounds, they were just kind of abusing outside, going places where he wasn't really holding. So I don't blame him too much for that. On this round against the Force, they throw outside smokes, are planning to probably... Oh my god. Night-night. Bye-bye. Device ends Senzu. Simple kills Gizmi. Let's see what happens here. And they run into a stack lower. Electronic is 4 HP, and this round, it looks like it's about to be lost. Let me go back and see what even just happened here. And so here, they kind of walk into a lower stack. Zinio going in first, dies. Magis can't get the trade, and then it's Electronic last alive, at least out of the 3, and he's got 4 HP. This round is kind of a little chopped. Simple dies to Sierra, and then there's just no way Electronic is winning a 1v3 on 4 HP. This would have to be an insane misplay from 100 Thieves. Jesus Christ, man. You cannot draw up a worse start to a T side than that. One thing I do want to say is, like, I don't want to be too overly critical here because Magisk has just started calling, right? But I do think it's a little crazy on second round. When you look at how meticulous 100 Thieves was at clearing all of these angles, and then, you know, we cut back to BC game. Magisk has almost a full set of utility. Mizinio has a flash. Electronic has a smoke and a flash. And against a force buy, we are just deciding to slow walk into them. Like I said, it's still very, very early. But this is just kind of a horrific misplay, in my opinion, especially considering how much utility they had. You know, Device on the scout, they probably know by this point that they're going against a force buy, and I just feel like that, you know, that probably isn't the maneuver. You know, I'm really interested to know your guys' thoughts on this round as well here, because after losing the second round force, of course, BC game forces back, and the call is simple silo with a deagle. The rest of the team pushes through ramp. Two players are through the smoke. Mizinio is back here, and it doesn't look like Electronic has even entered lobby yet. Which, like, it's not like this is a full, you know, eco. This isn't a throwaway round. We've invested every single ounce of money we have into this round, and so just, like, incredibly disjointed. But like I said, it is very early as well, yet this team is still a work in progress. I don't want to be too critical, but these are definitely things the team has to work on. Then, of course, the round after that is a full save, which 100 Thieves wins. And at this point, the game is 8-8. This is the most important round of the game so far. Buy versus buy. I want to see what Magis calls here. Okay, this is a pretty standard call. This is a visual bug. He does not have the bomb. As we talked about with the roles earlier, Electronic is the lurker closer on this team, so he's going to be lurking and holding for a lobby push, while the entire rest of the team takes outside control. This makes sense. Outside is the most important part of the entire map on Nuke. You know, it's almost impossible to do anything with no outside control, so this is fair. This is a standard play. This makes sense. Are we doing it with no outside smokes? Don't tell me we're about to dry walk into a Device op. Please don't tell me. Okay, no, we do have outside smokes. They blow it up. Okay, what are you gonna do? Sure. Okay, fine. Okay, so here, this is like, you know, do you guys see the difference here of like what 100 Thieves is doing versus what BC Game did when the other team tries to take outside? You know, there was a couple rounds where they just threw simple outside, said, fuck it, you know, go have some fun. And that did work. At least one round it worked. But when BC Game tries to take outside and get down secret, 100 Thieves are incredibly aggressive in trying to stop them. Before they can even cross the outside smokes, they already have a player secret. Gizmy is blowing up this nade for Device to get a pick. And then Gizmy is also going to be aggroing from Mini. It's just, they're just so much better at trying to stop the other team from taking it. Well, for BC Game, it was more of just Electronic playing incredibly passively, letting them down secret, and then having Mizinio just drop down to B side. So because they're now in a 3v4, you know, they don't have really any control besides, you know, deep outside. They know that Device with the op was somewhere over here, and it would be a nightmare to cross, you know, with the smoke starting to fade. They then pivot into trying to crunch onto A. And let's see how this pivot goes. Okay, good trade. And TNT. This half-buy round right here from BC Game is without a doubt the best called round of the entire game from them so far. So here they try and do the same thing they did last round. They throw their outside smokes. They want to get down secret if they can. In this round, 100 Thieves just isn't as ready for it. They don't have as good of a setup as they did last round. And so because of this is kind of where the aggressiveness outside can kind of shoot yourself in the foot, because Gizmy still feels like he cannot just give this up for free, not like what BC Game were doing. And so he decides against the pistols to try and go for a hero play walking the outside smokes. This is an incredibly high risk move where you can win your team the round, but in turn you can also lose your team the round. And he walks through, kills one, does a fuck ton of damage on Senzu and Mizinho. It's honestly unlucky he doesn't kill either of them. And now it's a 4v4. You know, 100 Thieves still do have the advantage here just because of the health. It's crazy that Nade didn't kill anyone as well. But then Mizinho on 22 HP with a deagle just simply ends Device. He puts him under the ground. And I mean, that is a thing with this BC Game roster. Like, the players on this team individually, fucking phenomenal. At any point, any of these players can pop off, it seems, maybe besides Electronic. No hate, though. And single-handedly, win you a round. And so now at this point, I'm not gonna lie to you, this is probably the best IGLing Magisk has done the entire game. The mid-round call to fully group and go back into lobby, and then take ramp, it's a phenomenal mid-round call here. I gotta give Magisk his flowers. So now at this point, BC Game has just been called into a completely wide open site. Sure, there's Sierra controls someone else squeaky, but the site itself is completely clear. So Sierra here just gets demolished by Simple, and now Rain is in a 1v3 on the site. Now, maybe if you are Donk, you can potentially claw yourself out of this situation. And while Rain is a GOAT, he unfortunately... Oh my god, he saw Simple, but didn't process it. Cannot. And now it is a Magisk 1v1 against Poi. He tries his best, but he ends up dying. Wait, I'm a chud. They don't win this round. This whole time I thought they won this round, bro. Oh my god. Okay, realistically, that round was great from BC Game. They kind of sold to Poi, who is stomping around, kills Simple, and Mizinho has no HP. You know what? Hey, bruh. I mean, this is just a Poi round, but, like, listen, good mid-round from Magisk, good picks outside. This was a good round. An insanely successful half-buy. All right, now the game is starting to kind of slip away from BC Game. They've won one T round so far after switching over, and it was the pistol. And so this gun round is, once again, similar to the other gun round when it was 8-8. Absolutely huge. And on this round, 100 Thieves tries to catch BC Game off with a lobby crunch. It works for Device. He gets one. We then see this fight go down in HUT between Magisk and Rain, where Rain loses the fight to Magisk. And so now at this point, 100 Thieves just kind of regroups in the 4v4, and all of BC Game is in lobby. They are going to pop out A. They pretty much have fucking nothing for utility, so they are just going to have to run this shit dry. And they're in a 2v2. It's working good so far. Ooh, Simple v Device here. Simple has to win this for the round. Simple has to win this for the round. And no one dies, actually. Electronic is the one that sells this. Let's see what happens. I mean, you're kind of trapped behind sight here. You have less HP. You know, this isn't really his fault. It's unfortunate. Could have maybe tried to shoulder peek a little bit more. Now Simple's in a 1v2 where it's over. Kind of an extremely messy round. A great call from 100 Thieves to catch a BC Game off guard. And, well, it works. So then in the next gun round, BC Game goes back to trying to get down secret and take outside control, which they do very successfully. Once again, similar to that half-buy round, Gizmy is the first one dead for 100 Thieves. He doesn't want to give up secret, and Mizinho just kills him through the smoke. This is where Magisk then decides that they aren't going to actually go down B. Instead, Magisk wants to crunch A with the Electronics position holding lobby. Magisk just suns Rain here. Oof. Night, buddy. He also kills Device. And once again, you know, a pretty solid mid-round call from Magisk here. You know, they completely pivot from deciding to go down secret, and they just crunch the A site, and it works out pretty flawlessly for them. This next round here is just a full A-pop from the fellas. And they fully catch 100 Thieves with their pants down. But like overall here, I mean, look at this. Perfect utility, you know, perfect execution. This is a phenomenal round from BC Game. You really can't poke any holes with this round they just did. And so now at this point, this is 2 rounds that BC Game has won in a row. The first being a little bit more fluky, it feels like. Mizinho got to pick through a smoke. You know, you get a Magisk 1-tap, a device missed op shot. But it was a good mid-round from Magisk nonetheless. And then this round is just a perfect execute from BC Game. You know, easily the best executed round they've had this entire game so far. And so this round here, BC Game just fully gives up outside control, and they're doing the exact same thing basically that they had just done. This time 100 Thieves is a little bit more ready for it, but Simple does eventually get a trade kill on Sierra here. And then this happens. Are we dead ass? I'll be honest here, fellas. I don't know if you're recreating this round very much, right? Their A take gets almost completely shut down. 100 Thieves is totally ready for it. It was kind of predictable, you know, they had just done it the round before, but Mizinho just murders someone through a smoke. You know, second time this game that has happened, so maybe, you know, it isn't a fluke. Like here, an insane nade from Gizmi, but 100 Thieves just decides to save, so they still have guns for the next round. So then in this incredibly important 11-11 round, BC Game actually does change up what they're doing a little bit. They decide, okay, our A-take just got shut down, so we're gonna go back to trying to take outside control, and Gizmi just fully has his fucking pants down. What the fuck was that? Bro, they gotta stop peeking that. I mean, anytime someone peeks that, they're just getting 1-tapped. And so another, you know, kind of very chaotic round at this point, it seems like. And Magisk once again decides that after taking secret, they are gonna go back up and try and crunch A, it seems like. I do get it. The team has full outside control. They're going up heaven. It's the obvious call to make. And it's just Rain here fully alone. You know, Sierra's on B, Poise on B. There should be no universe Rain can possibly hold this site. And while he does get one, that's about it. They have a site. They have a 3v2. And once again, this round, the CTs are just kind of forced to save. And so this is multiple rounds in a row now where, like, it has been good calling from Magisk. I would say the only really great round so far is that one A-pop they did. But, like, other than that, it's kind of just been individual heroics. You know, Mizinho killing someone through a smoke. Magisk or Senzu one-tapping someone from outside to heaven. And so at this point so far, it really seems like, you know, the BC Game bag, at least on Nuke, they take outside control, and then they split A, or they do an A-pop. That's been easily their 2 most successful rounds up to this point. And so on this last round, they decide to simply go back to what worked. These motherfuckers are popping out A. And well, for the most part, it works decently well. They have a 3v3, now a 3v1. And then they lose to a Gizmi 1v3. Oh, and then they end up losing this game in OT, and, well, you know how I was talking about, like, a couple of these rounds maybe seeming a little bit fluky? BC Game cannot recreate any of their success in overtime. Actually, are they gonna try and do a B split? What is the goal here? Let me see. Or is it gonna be an A split? You know, Gizmi gets this kill on Magisk before the smoke pops, it looks like. It's not great timing. He's just getting a little antsy. Then the rest of the team tries to take ramp. Yep. So this round is kind of a disaster. It fizzles out. Well, I mean, dude, like, once again, Magix tries to lurk outside and dies to device. And it looks like we are going to do the exact same play that we had just tried last round. Except, no. Or we're going to pop out A instead. Hey, see what happens, fellas. You know, 100 Thieves are just so unbelievably ready for this A-pop. It doesn't really seem like they exactly know what they want to do. They're in a brutal position at this point. Yeah, this round is actually kind of brutal because they totally could have won this. They end up trying to pop out A at 20 seconds. Even less than 20 seconds. Electronic gets a pick. Device misses his shot. It's a 2v2 now. Oh, God. Realistically, they could have won this round, but you hate to see it. And then what's the call for their last T round of the game? They try to pop out A a little bit late. Rain gets one, gets back. They got 3 people on site, and it's just unbelievably disjointed. Not nearly as good as, you know, their other A take was. And well, BC game just kind of crumbles in this match. They lose the last CT round and end up not making it out of this qualifier, losing on the 3rd map of Anubis to 100 Thieves as well. And so after watching that entire demo, we got to keep 2 things in mind. Like I said, it is very early for this roster, and it was only 1 map, but a few things become incredibly clear to me. I think the individual players on this team are enough to make them one of the better teams in the world, but I don't think they're good enough to make them a top 20 team, in my opinion. You know, the matchup between them and 100 Thieves was very interesting because it really did look like 100 Thieves were the better team in this matchup, but BC game had the better players. And realistically, this series could have gone either way. BC game should have won if they didn't lose a 1v3 to Gizme at 12-11. But on the other side of the coin, you can also say a lot of those rounds they did win were kind of fluky. You know, maybe that's not even a 12-11 game if Mizinho doesn't get multiple kills through a smoke. So, you know, it's really just tough to say, man. But like, this series really was 2 completely different teams. But like I did say, I do think BC game has good enough individuals to be around the stage 1 range of major invites, which just means they're going to be a top 30 to 40 ranked VRS team in the world. At the time of the Cologne major invites being sent out, I think Sinners was like the lowest ranked European team, and they were number 30 in the world. So I guess I see BC game from 20 to 30, I guess. Not 30 to 40. That was a little bit too far down. But yeah, I see this current BC game roster being from the 20 to 30 range ranked VRS wise in the world, single-handedly because of their individuals, and in a big part too simple. But at least this current iteration of this roster, don't know if I necessarily see them being a lot higher than like a top 30 ranked team in the world, because of a few things. And it's really just gonna be Magisk and Electronic, but for 2 completely separate reasons. I get this team is brand new, and I don't want to go too hard on them. Like I've said, they haven't been a team for that long, but I do think at least for this next season, I don't know if I can see them being ranked any higher than number 20 because of Magisk being their leader. But that's not like me shitting on Magisk. It's just me saying that transitioning into a brand new caller takes a long ass time, and it also helps when you have a very smart coach behind you. You know, the Saws of the world, maybe the Cyclones of the world, and no disrespect to Taz, but at least from what we have seen from Taz, I don't know how helpful he will be in developing Magisk as a caller. And now this isn't me saying I'm out on Magisk. I do think Magisk could be a good caller at some point in the future, but I don't know if that's really gonna be this season. It might not be the season after that. It might not even be the season after that. You know, it might take a minute for Magisk to become a very solid caller if BC game even gives him that long. I really don't know how long his leash is going to be. And number 2 is just Electronic, because they need to get rid of Electronic. I think even if Magisk maybe isn't the most generational caller of all time, this team could still be a top 20 team single-handedly based on individuals if they can replace Electronic with him. I don't know if they have enough juice, but like for how important of positions Electronic is playing, you just can't have the output that he has. I hate to say it. And so I don't know if I personally can take this team super seriously while he is still on the roster. You know, they might still be a roster move and a coach move away from being a super serious top 20 team, but who's to say? It's just, at least from what I've seen, the team is a little too dysfunctional. And like I said, I get it's early, man, but like when you watch them in comparison to 100 Thieves, and it's not even like 100 Thieves is a top 10, top 20 ranked team in the world either at the moment. You know, I felt like there were drastic differences in how good each team's protocols were. But then again, you know, I guess Gizme is already a very good caller, and they've been a team for a decent bit longer. Well, I guess I don't know though, because Gizme is still fairly new to the roster. These are both new teams, you know, adding a new IGL and having to change up the entire system of the team is a pretty drastic change. So maybe it is valid to compare 100 Thieves to BC game and just see how much better tactically 100 Thieves was when compared compared to BC Game. It's just kind of one of those instances where, like, if these two teams were combined together, oh my days. If Gizmy was added to BC Game instead of Magisk, no disrespect to Magisk, and then you replace Electronic with literally anyone, maybe BC Game would be fucking demonic. They really could be at that point, I feel like. But yeah, those are my main takeaways for the team at this point. Electronic still has to go. This team has a lot of potential just because of how good the individual players are, but it's gonna be hard for me to see them all mesh together and look very good as a team, at least for the foreseeable future. I could see it, you know, maybe a year down the line. I guess even, you know, next season, I could maybe see it, but at least for this season, this team is definitely still a work in progress. But let me know what you guys think down below. How high are you on the new Bertram Clyde gaming team? You know, liking the video if you liked, subscribing if you want to subscribe, turn on notifications if you want to be notified, and that's it from me, fellas. I will see